Alarms erupted in crimson flashes, slicing the void inside the cockpit as metal groaned under unseen pressure. Captain Elias Ward gripped the console, haunted eyes narrowed at distorted readouts. He muttered, "Not again. This can't be happening." Sparks rained from ruptured wires, acrid smoke curling like ghosts through the chamber. Lieutenant Mira Hayes shouted over the noise, "Systems are collapsing. Something's overriding us." Elias's voice trembled. "We're not alone here," and the words silenced the crew more than the alarms ever could. The stars beyond warped, bending like liquid glass, space twisting into impossible shapes. Static bled into the comms, an alien voice clawing through the frequencies, layered syllables scraping across their minds. Crew members staggered, clutching ears, their faces pale with terror. Elias forced himself upright, gaze locked on the growing distortion. Mira whispered, "Captain, what is it?" He swallowed, chest heaving, and said, "It isn't a signal, it's a memory." The silence afterward felt heavier than the alarms. Smoke curled lazily across the cockpit, only the faint groan of strained metal breaking the stillness. Elias Ward sat hunched, fingers pressed to his temples, as if holding back the voices that clawed inside his skull. Mira Hayes stood beside him, whispering, "You need to see this." Her finger pointed toward the viewport, where stars shimmered quietly, yet faint ripples scarred the void like echoes of violence. Elias muttered, "We've been touched," his words falling softer than breath. The crew shifted uneasily, exchanging glances that carried deeper fear than the chaos before. Somewhere inside the hull, a low hum resonated, faint but steady, like a heartbeat not their own. Mira asked, "Do we report this?" Her voice cracked. Elias's eyes lowered and he answered, "No, Command won't believe us. They never did." His words dissolved into the stillness, swallowed whole by a silence more dangerous than noise. The mess hall was quiet, shadows stretching long under failing lights. The crew sat in uneasy silence, their faces pale, the air thick with fear. Elias Ward sat apart, clutching a silver pendant, thumb tracing its surface as if grounding himself in memory. Mira Hayes broke the silence softly. "They're waiting on you, Elias." His gaze lifted briefly, meeting weary eyes across the room before sinking back into shadow. "I'm no leader," he muttered. "I've led men to death." The words poisoned the air, echoing louder than his voice. A younger crewman whispered, "We'd already be dead without you." The comment struck Elias like a blade, tightening his jaw, forcing him deeper into guilt. Mira leaned closer, her tone steady but urgent. "They need you, whether you accept it or not." Elias closed his fist around the pendant, the metal cutting into his palm, his whisper ragged. "And what if I fail them again?" The corridor hummed with broken rhythm, lights flickering like dying stars. Elias Ward walked with Mira close behind, his steps slow, hand brushing cold steel walls. She spoke quietly, "You don't trust them." Crew members passed by, their gazes shifting downward too quickly, silence heavier than words. Elias paused, palm pressed to the trembling wall, feeling vibrations crawl through his skin. "Something's wrong here," he muttered. Ahead, a technician knelt, fumbling with sparking wires, sweat glistening along his temple. His hands shook as if his fear was more than technical failure. Elias's gaze locked with him for an instant, and the young man flinched away. Mira whispered, "They're scared." Elias shook his head, eyes narrowing. "No, they're hiding something." Above them, the corridor light flickered again, stretching their shadows unnaturally along the walls as if the ship itself reflected their dread. Night cycle dimmed the ship, cloaking corridors in artificial dusk. Alone in his quarters, Elias stared at his fractured reflection, scarred face split by flickering light. His lips moved softly. "You'll fail them again." The words didn't feel like his own, crawling instead from deep inside. He staggered back, pressing a hand to his chest as the hum returned, low and resonant, vibrating through the walls. He reached for the console, but the screen sparked alive before his touch, symbols blooming in pulsating rhythm. His breath caught as the symbols shifted into the shape of an eye, watching with chilling stillness. "What are you?" he whispered, his voice hollow. Silence pressed harder, suffocating. The room darkened, shadows bleeding across walls, leaving only the glowing eye to stare. Elias's heart pounded as dread settled deep inside him. For the first time, he no longer felt invaded from outside. The invasion was already within. The tension returned as faint whispers rippled through the crew quarters. A technician convulsed suddenly, his eyes rolling back, mouth spilling static instead of words. Mira Hayes shouted for medical, her voice cracking with fear. Elias Ward shoved through the chaos, gripping the man's shoulders as unnatural strength buckled his frame. The crew backed away, fear painted across their faces. The whispers thickened, crawling along the walls like invisible roots. Elias's jaw clenched as he forced the man down, shouting, "Fight it!" The technician's body jerked violently before collapsing, eyes blank. A sickly silence spread, broken only by his rasping breath. Mira whispered, "It's inside them now." Elias looked at her, scar catching the low light, his face carved with dread. "It was never outside, Mira. It's been here all along." In the command deck, the holographic feed shimmered into place, revealing Admiral Corvin, a figure both imposing and calm. His silver hair gleamed under polished lights, eyes sharp and calculating. "You've encountered something you can't control," he said, voice smooth with dangerous confidence. Elias Ward stiffened, fists clenched at his sides. "We need containment protocols, not politics." Corvin smirked, his tone dripping superiority. "Your panic reveals your weakness, Captain. Leadership requires strength, not doubt." Mira Hayes leaned forward, her voice biting. "And what price will your strength demand this time?" Corvin's gaze sharpened, his silence colder than any reply. The crew shifted uneasily, sensing both his power and his threat. Elias spoke softly, almost to himself. "You're not afraid of what's out there. You're afraid of losing control in here." Later, in the mess hall, whispers carried like shadows. Crewman Rin, young and ambitious, leaned close to a small cluster, his voice low. "Word doesn't know what he's doing. We need someone who can act, not someone haunted by ghosts." Elias entered quietly, hearing enough to freeze him in place. Mira's eyes caught his, but she said nothing, her silence heavy with unspoken warning. Rin continued, his tone sharpening. "He'll drag us down with him." The group shifted nervously, torn between fear and loyalty. Elias turned away before they could see him, his chest tightening with betrayal's sting. Alone in the corridor, he whispered to himself, "Even my own crew doubts me." The walls groaned softly, as though the ship agreed. Deep in the maintenance bay, Elias found a figure leaning against the cold steel wall, eyes shadowed by dim light. It was Jalen Voss, the survivor, a gaunt man scarred by burns, his expression hardened by horrors untold. Elias approached cautiously. "You've seen this before." Jalen's eyes flicked up, haunted and wary. "I survived it. That's not the same as defeating it." His voice rasped like gravel, each word carved from pain. Mira stepped forward, asking, "What is it?" Jalen shook his head slowly. "Not what. Who? They live inside us, waiting, feeding." His words sent chills through the bay, silence pressing against every surface. Elias's face hardened, scar burning in crimson glow. "Then surviving isn't enough. We have to stop it." Jalen's silence was answer enough. That night, the crew gathered in uneasy formation. Fear hung heavy in the recycled air, their faces pale in flickering half-light. Whispers twisted into arguments, suspicion crawling between them like fire. A young officer accused another of sabotage, voices rising until fists nearly flew. Mira Hayes stepped between them, forcing them apart with sharp words, but the doubt had already taken root. Elias Ward stood at the edge, silent, scarred face unreadable. He could see it in their eyes. Trust was breaking, faster than systems could fail. The hum in the walls grew louder, like a predator's breath circling them. Elias finally spoke, his voice low and steady. It's not each other you should fear. It's what's already inside us. His words fell heavy, echoing deeper than silence. The maintenance deck was cloaked in shadow when a figure appeared on the holoscreen, face hidden beneath a hood. The signal flickered, voice calm yet distant. "Elias Ward," the stranger said, "I know what hunts you." Elias's scarred face hardened, suspicion etched deep. "And who are you?" The figure leaned closer, light revealing sharp features, genderless and ageless in the distortion. "Call me Seraph. I have walked in the dark that now surrounds you." Mira Hayes stepped forward, eyes sharp with distrust. "Why help us?" The hooded figure's lips curved faintly. "Because if you fail, none of us will survive." The feed dissolved into static, leaving silence so heavy it pressed against every chest. Elias whispered, "Even ghosts have their agendas." The ship groaned as though in agreement. The corridors shook violently as the crew scrambled toward engineering. A deafening crack split the air, followed by a flash of sparks. They found Officer Lauren pinned beneath shattered metal, blood pooling fast. Mira knelt, pressing her hands against the wound. "Stay with me," she pleaded, voice breaking. Elias Ward pulled debris away, jaw locked in silent fury. The man's lips trembled, whispering, "It's inside me," before his body arched violently, eyes glowing pale. For an instant, a ripple spread under his skin, alien movements twisting like worms beneath flesh. Then silence, his body collapsing limp. The crew froze, horror painting every face. Mira whispered, "We've lost him." Her hands stained red. Elias stood slowly, voice hoarse. "No, we've lost more than him. We've lost time." Alone in his quarters, Elias stared at the pendant resting in his palm, its surface worn smooth from years of touch. He whispered, "How many did I bury before this?" His reflection in the fractured mirror looked back at him, scarred and broken, a stranger in his own skin. The hum returned, low and steady, reminding him of every failure. His chest tightened as voices rose again, alien whispers threading through the silence. Mira entered quietly, watching him from the doorway. "You're punishing yourself for things you couldn't control." Elias didn't look up. "I should have stopped it. I should have saved them." His fist closed over the pendant, knuckles white. Mira stepped closer, her voice softer. "If you drown in the past, you'll let the present kill us all." In the storage bay, crewman Rin met with Admiral Corvin's encrypted projection, voice low and urgent. "Word can't hold them together," Rin insisted, bitterness dripping. Corvin's cold smile flickered through the projection. "Then perhaps you are ready to lead." Rin's eyes narrowed, ambition sparking as he whispered, "Give me the chance." The Admiral's image leaned forward, words sharp as blades. "Break him, and you will have your place." The projection faded, leaving Rin in shadows, his chest heaving with both fear and hunger. Unseen in the corner, Jalen Voss watched silently, eyes narrowing as he realized betrayal was blooming within their walls. The mess hall grew tense as the youngest member of the crew, Lyora, stood trembling, her voice fragile but clear. "I know something," she said, eyes wide with fear. Elias turned, scar catching dim light. "What do you mean?" Lyora held up a small datapad, its screen glowing with unreadable alien script. "It responds to me," she whispered. The crew gasped, drawing closer as the symbols shifted into patterns at her touch. Mira whispered, "She's the key." Elias felt the weight of destiny settle heavier on his shoulders. The crew stared at Lyora, no longer the innocent child among them but something greater, something terrifying. Elias muttered, "The galaxy's hope lies in the smallest of hands." The medbay lights flickered as Elias Ward stared at scans projected above the table. The images were not of space, but of veins, cells, and organs twisting unnaturally. Mira Hayes whispered, "These aren't external attacks. It's infection." The crew leaned in, faces pale, silence spreading heavier than the recycled air. Jalen Voss rasped, They're not invading. They've always been here waiting. Elias's scarred face tensed, eyes locked on the sickening ripples of alien movement under flesh. "We're carrying the enemy inside us," he said, his voice cold. A young officer stammered. "Then what chance do we have?" Mira looked at Elias, fear sharp in her tone. "They'll tear us apart from within." Elias closed his eyes, whispering, "The invasion already happened. We just didn't see it." In the cargo bay, Jalen Voss leaned heavily against a crate, his scarred hands trembling. "I lived through this before," he rasped, eyes haunted. The crew circled him, waiting. He raised his shirt, showing pale scar tissue across his ribs, twisted with unnatural marks. "They crawl inside you, wear your body until it's ash." Mira flinched, whispering, "How did you survive?" Jalen's voice cracked. "I didn't. Something in me still carries them." The silence was suffocating as his words echoed. Elias Ward stepped closer, scar catching dim amber light. "Then you're not a survivor. You're a warning." Jalen's head lowered, pain etched in every line of his face. "And warnings are always too late." In the control hub, crewman Rin stood before the others, voice sharp. "Ward is finished. He hides truths we need." His words carried venom, emboldened by shadows of doubt already growing. Mira Hayes snapped back. "You're playing into fear." But Rin pressed harder. "Fear keeps us alive." The crew shifted uneasily, whispers splitting them apart. Elias Ward entered quietly, his presence silencing the room. His scarred face held no anger, only steady weight. "If you think betrayal will save you, then choose him. But when this ends, you'll see what side you stood on." His words landed heavy, more warning than threat. Rin's jaw tightened, eyes gleaming with ambition, and for the first time his disloyalty stood naked before them all. In the observation deck, stars stretched endless, but the silence between Elias and the moral confidant, Dr. Arlen, was heavier. Arlen's calm eyes held sorrow. "I've believed in hope, Elias, but what if hope blinds us?" Elias turned, scar catching starlight. "Then hope is all we've got." Arlen's hands tightened on the railing, his faith fracturing. "I watched them consume good men. I believed redemption was possible. Now I wonder if I lied to myself." Elias's voice lowered, steel under the pain. "If you break, they win." Arlen looked out at the void, his reflection fractured against the glass. Sometimes faith is harder to hold than fear. In the dim war room, Elias Ward stood alone at the central table, maps and codes scattered in ghostly projection light. His eyes scanned the shifting data, jaw locked as if bracing against himself. Mira Hayes entered, her voice soft but firm. "You can't keep running from this." Elias's voice was rough. "Every time I lead, people die." Mira's eyes burned with defiance. "And if you don't, everyone dies." Silence hung as he looked down at the glowing table, scar casting harsh shadows. Finally, Elias raised his head, voice steady. "Then I'll lead. Not because I believe I can win, but because I can't watch them lose." His words settled like stone, the first true step into the role he had long resisted. The ship trembled as alarms shrieked, corridors bathed in sickly red glow. Crew members staggered as bodies convulsed, alien possession bursting violently through flesh. Eyes clouded white, voices overlapping with inhuman echoes. Mira Hayes shouted for containment, but hands already twisted into claws. Jalen Voss cried out, "It's begun!" Elias Ward stood firm, scar catching the emergency light, his voice cutting through chaos. "Seal the decks, don't let it spread." The sound of bones snapping filled the air, the infected screaming as they lost themselves. Panic rippled across the survivors, weapons raised with shaking hands. Mira whispered, "They were our crew." Elias's face hardened, grief buried under necessity. "Not anymore. Fight them, or we all fall." The invasion was no longer hidden. It was alive. In engineering, the tragic hero, Commander Kale, forced his trembling body toward the reactor controls. His once proud figure now gaunt, eyes hollow but burning with desperate resolve. "I can stabilize it," he rasped, sweat dripping as alarms blared. Mira Hayes rushed to his side, pleading, "You'll kill yourself." Cale shoved her back gently, smile weak but determined. "Better me than all of you." Sparks cascaded from ruptured panels, bathing him in orange light. Elias Ward shouted, "Cale, don't!" But Cale slammed the override, reactor humming violently as his body convulsed. His scream echoed through the deck, followed by silence. The system steadied, lights flickering back to balance. Mira whispered, tears burning her eyes, "He saved us." Elias's jaw clenched. "Or bought us time." In the war room, Admiral Corvin's hologram towered, his voice cutting like a blade. "Order through fear is the only way. Control them, or watch them burn." His silver hair gleamed under projection light, cold eyes locking onto Elias Ward. Mira Hayes snapped, "You'd sacrifice billions for your vision." Corvin smirked, calm and ruthless. "Sacrifice is survival." The crew shifted, anger and fear colliding in their faces. Elias's scarred face reflected fury, his voice steady. "You're not saving the galaxy, Corvin. You're enslaving it." The Admiral leaned closer, shadows etching his face. "Leadership is not about hope, Captain. It's about control." Silence fell heavy, the crew realizing their enemy wasn't only alien. It was human ambition burning brighter than stars. In the lower decks, Seraph returned in flickering holographic form, hood casting shadows across sharp features. Elias demanded, "Why help us now?" The hidden ally's voice was calm, but edges cracked with urgency. "Because I need you alive." Mira Hayes stepped forward, suspicion sharp. "Alive for what?" Seraph's gaze pierced through the distortion. "I know how to end them, but the price will scar you all." The crew shifted uneasily, distrust heavy in the air. Elias's scar glowed red under emergency light. "Then speak plainly." Seraph's lips curved faintly. "Plainly, the only way to kill them is to kill what they've made of you." The hologram flickered, leaving silence like a blade pressed to the heart of every survivor. Alone in the captain's quarters, Elias Ward sat hunched at the edge of his bunk, scarred face carved by shadows. Pendant hung in his hand, cutting into his palm. The voices inside whispered louder, taunting with memories of failure. His reflection in the glass wall showed not just himself but faint alien ripples under his skin. Mira entered quietly, her eyes soft with sorrow. "You can't keep carrying this alone." Elias's voice cracked. "Every life I lost follows me." Mira knelt before him, hands steady on his. "Then let them guide you instead of break you." He closed his eyes, chest trembling. "If I lead, it ends with me." Mira whispered, fierce and certain, "Then make it worth the ending." The bridge shook as betrayal struck like a blade. Crewman Rin stood at the console, hands flying across controls, locking out systems. "Ward's weakness will kill us all," he shouted. Red alarms bathed his face, ambition sharp as steel. Mira Hayes lunged forward, but security shutters slammed down, separating them. Jalen Voss growled, "You've doomed us." Rin's eyes burned with fevered pride. "I've saved us from him." A panel exploded, shrapnel cutting across a young officer's throat, blood spraying. The crew's cries filled the chamber, betrayal sealing itself in screams. Elias Ward's scarred face was still, grief hidden behind fury. His voice thundered, "When this ends you'll answer for every life you cost." But Rin only smirked, knowing the damage was already done. In the dark hangar, Jalen Voss staggered forward, scars catching the dim light. He gripped a plasma rifle, his gaunt frame trembling with exhaustion. "I've run from this long enough," he rasped. The crew stared, stunned at his resolve. "I'll hold the line," he said, eyes blazing with desperate fire. Mira Hayes whispered, "You'll die." Jalen's lips curled faintly. "I've already died once." He positioned himself before the looming bay doors, their surface rattling with the pounding of infected bodies. Elias Ward's scar caught pale light as he said, "If you do this, you won't come back." Jalen nodded slowly. "Then let them remember me for how I left." The doors shook again, and his rifle powered to life. The crew gathered in the war room, faces pale but resolute. Elias Ward stood at the center, Scar catching the ghostly blue glow of holograms. His voice was steady, stronger than before. "We've lost too much. But if we don't stand now, everything burns." Mira Hayes stepped beside him, eyes locked with his. "Then let's remind them who we are." The crew's whispers faded, replaced by nods, their fear tempered into steel. Elias's gaze swept across them, lingering on the youngest, Lyora, who clutched the glowing datapad. "You carry our hope," he said softly. She nodded, eyes wide but unflinching. His voice rose, echoing in the chamber. "We fight not because we're ready, but because we refuse to surrender." The battlefield erupted in violent chaos as infected stormed through shattered bulkheads. Plasma fire scorched the dark shadows, twisting in violent shapes. Elias Ward led the charge, scarred face set with grim fury, rifle kicking against his shoulder. Mira Hayes fought at his side, precise and unyielding, her eyes sharp with fire. Rin's sabotage forced systems to flicker, lights dying, leaving only gunfire's glow to paint the carnage. Jalen Voss's rifle thundered from the hangar beyond, his sacrifice echoing in every shot. The infected swarmed, bodies convulsing with alien strength. Elias roared, "Hold the line!" His voice cut through the chaos, pulling the crew together in defiance. For a moment, against all odds, humanity stood unbroken. In the heart of engineering, Commander Kale's sacrifice still hummed in the reactor. The tragic hero stumbled forward once more, body broken but spirit burning. "Let me end it," he whispered. Elias Ward caught his arm, eyes wide with refusal. "You've given enough." Kale shook his head, a faint smile cutting through the pain. "Not enough to matter." He tore free, staggering toward the failing core. Mira Hayes shouted, "Kale, no!" But his hand slammed against the manual release, forcing the system into overload. The reactor roared, light flooding like a second sun. His scream was lost in the blinding surge as his body vanished into fire. Elias's eyes burned, scarred face etched with grief. "He gave us everything." The battlefield lay in ruin, smoke curling through broken steel. Elias Ward staggered forward, Scar catching the firelight. His voice rasped through the silence, "It's over." Mira Hayes joined him, bloodied but unbowed. She whispered, "Not over, just quieter." Around them bodies lay still, the infected husks burned out. Jalen Voss's weapon clattered to the floor, his gaunt form collapsing, chest still as stone. Elias knelt, hand on his shoulder, grief silent but heavy. "He bought us this breath," he said. The surviving crew stood in trembling silence, faces haunted. Above, stars glittered, cruel in their indifference. For a heartbeat, the universe felt emptier, as though sacrifice had carved a hollow that would never heal. The survivors gathered in the memorial bay, light from broken panels spilling across their faces. Mira Hayes' voice carried softly, "They died so we could stand here." Her hands trembled, yet her eyes remained strong. Elias Ward placed Kale's insignia on the empty dais, the scar on his face stark against pale glow. "We carry them with us," he said. The crew lowered their heads, silent in grief. Young Lyora stepped forward, clutching the datapad, voice cracking. "If we stop, then all they did is wasted." Her words cut through sorrow like fire through fog. The silence lifted into resolve, fragile but real. Elias whispered, almost to himself, "Then we'll keep walking." His scarred face hardened. Always forward. In the shattered observation deck, the stars stretched endless. Elias Ward leaned against the railing, shoulders heavy, eyes lost in void. Mira Hayes joined him, silence first their only language. Finally she asked, "Do you ever wonder if we'll see home again?" Elias's jaw tightened, Scar catching faint starlight. Home isn't there anymore. It's here with whoever's left. She studied him, seeing strength where others saw ruin. Then don't carry it all alone. He turned, eyes raw, grief and fire entwined. I don't know how else to be. Her hand brushed his arm, steady as stone. Learn. Together they stood, stars above vast and cold, but for the first time, their silence felt less empty. The ship limped through the void, engines flickering. In engineering, Lyora bent over the controls, small hands steady, datapad glowing. Elias Ward and Mira Hayes watched from the shadows. She's too young, Mira whispered. Elias shook his head. She's exactly what we need. Lyora's eyes glowed with determination, her voice soft but firm. Kale showed me how to finish it. I won't fail him. Her hands danced across controls, bringing dead systems to life. Sparks rained, shadows flared, but light bloomed in the chamber. Elias's scarred face eased, pride softening the grief. The future's already here, he murmured. Mira nodded, her voice breaking. Then, we hold it safe. The hum of engines returned, fragile yet alive. The bridge stood quiet as the stars parted. Elias Ward sat in the captain's chair, Scar catching the first soft glow of dawn from a nearby star. Mira Hayes at his side, posture firm, eyes unyielding. The crew moved with quiet purpose, no longer frantic but steady. Lyora's voice rang clear as she charted a new course. Heading set, Commander. Elias rose slowly, scarred face unreadable, then spoke with calm steel. Then, let's find tomorrow. The words carried through the chamber, binding them in fragile hope. Outside, light spilled across the void, painting the broken ship gold. For the first time since the nightmare began, the air held more than survival. It held the promise of beginning again.